The NSA spying scandal has recently taken a turn east. Newly released documents obtained by Edward Snowden show Australian diplomatic buildings were staging points for American spying in Asia. The spy agency under Barack Obama has repeatedly come under fire for eavesdropping on foreign nationals and world leaders. China quickly reacted to the latest revelations, and the government in Beijing, along with other Asian nations, demanded answers from the administration. Marty Natalegawa is the foreign minister of Indonesia. He said, "I guess it's not cricket to do this kind of thing." The world leaders who've had their communications tapped include German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Days after that spying became known, a meeting with Edward Snowden was requested by the German government. Snowden replied that he is ready to assist the Germans in their investigation into the eavesdropping. The NSA whistleblower has asked world organizations for help fighting the administration looking to have him arrested. Snowden has stated he wants to be able to address the U.S. Congress on the issue of spying. Kevin Gosztola is a journalist who publishes to FireDogLake.com. He closely follows the Edward Snowden story, including what has been revealed about NSA surveillance. He also traveled to Fort Meade in order to cover the trial of Private Manning earlier this year. Gosztola is our guest on the show today, and he will be discussing the deal between Edward Snowden and Germany. We'll also discuss the rise and future of spying by the National Security Agency. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thank you.
Kevin, what do you believe will be revealed in Snowden's statements to Germany?
There won't be anything that we haven't heard about so far, given the fact that Snowden himself is no longer carrying any NSA documents. Those were all, as he has said, and as journalists that are reporting on his revelations have said, they were given over to journalists like Glenn Greenwald or Ewan McCaskill at The Guardian for coverage. And so if he comes to Germany, we don't know if that will happen, but if he somehow would come to Germany or if he would meet with German politicians that would take some sort of testimony from him, then that would all be from his memory. It would all be knowledge that he has on the NSA. So what it would be doing would be to validate the sort of revelations that have come out so far.
So his documents are now in the hands of journalists like Glenn Greenwald. He would go to Germany. He would simply testify based on his knowledge. So what if he does go to Germany? And what would be the implications on the U.S. foreign policy angle?
There would be big implications. And I think, like, at this point, we could say there's a very minimal chance that he would actually go there, that he would obtain asylum. We're seeing recent news in the last 24 hours that some sort of no spying deal has been made between Germany and the United States, that they're not going to spy on each other's world leaders. I feel like if Snowden was granted asylum, it might be put as a sort of threat that there could be a torpedoing of relations if he was given asylum. Nonetheless, there are politicians there that are pushing for it. There are people in Germany that would like to see the country give him asylum. In fact,
what's to say that the relations between the world leaders, the United States, Germany, already hasn't been tarnished by these revelations?
It's true. And I think that what you'll have from supporters of Snowden or people who think that Germany should step up is this argument that if Merkel wants to show that Germany is an independent country from the United States, that it might assert itself and grant Edward Snowden asylum. And so you've seen arguments recently in a major issue of Der Spiegel, the German news magazine, that just is an array of reasons from people why Edward Snowden should be granted asylum.
So let me ask you this. Are these revelations bringing the United States stature down in the world stage?
Unmistakably. I think that all leaders, particularly now European allies, really look at the United States and wonder what they are doing. We're seeing revelations of spying on diplomatic meetings. We're seeing revelations of spying ahead of UN meetings. We're collecting the minutes for Ban Ki-moon, the UN Secretary General, ahead of that, so they can be prepared for that kind of a meeting. There are things that we are spying on that have no legitimate national security justification, and I think that's really making a lot of allies irritated at the United States. When
is the next large G8 or G20 meeting going to take place?
That I don't know. It just on an annual basis, though, these seem to take place. And as we've had these meetings, we've seen that these big countries, I guess we could even throw Russia into the mix here, having in bugged bags that apparently attendees were taking when they were going to the meeting. So you see these world powers engaged in surveillance. And I think what Edward Snowden's revelations are really bringing attention to is how these large powers are using their surveillance apparatuses to target individuals, and it's really raising questions about whether this is the sort of world we want to live in.
Well, do you think that when President Obama attends the next G8 or G20 meeting, he's going to have to face these world leaders face to face? He's going to have to stand up there and take those big photo ops, shake their hands. Do you think he's going to do so and perhaps not answer for his spy agency's activities? Or do you think he's going to shake their hands and say, you know what, I'm sorry, perhaps we shouldn't have done that?
So far, he hasn't been that forthright. A lot of the coming forward with information, I don't know that a lot of the allies have actually been satisfied with the information that has been given to them. So I think that in these face-to-face meetings, you're going to see a lot of tension. It certainly has followed Secretary of State John Kerry wherever he goes, and he's had to comment and even admit that some NSA spying goes too far.
Now let's talk about, you mentioned allies. Why did Australia agree to spy for the U.S. in Asia?
Australia has a particular partnership, not unlike the partnership that the United Kingdom has with the United States. It's one of, it's called the Five Eyes, and this includes Canada and New Zealand, and then the United States is one of these Five Eyes. And these are all people that partner together to do surveillance. So what you saw is the U.S. through Australia using their surveillance apparatus to target Asian countries, particularly Indonesia was a focus of the surveillance. And this is all, I think some of it happens as part of the war on terrorism, but then some of it also is so that the United States can know the intentions of world leaders, as has come out in the last week.
Why Indonesia, though? You mentioned the war on terror. Okay, we can say that that's an obvious reason, but Indonesia, what other function does Indonesia serve on the world stage that would be the focus of international spying?
The test case that came out in this report, this document from Snowden that was obtained, was that there was a climate change conference that was held in Bali, and ahead of it, the NSA decided to coordinate with Australia to see how good they could be at spying on the communications infrastructure of Indonesia. So I don't know if they were seriously hoping to collect information on what was going down at that conference, but
so basically, it was a beta test to see how far they could go?
It was a beta test. So, but what we're seeing is that between the Australian country, and then with the NSA, what you're seeing is a partnership trying to make sure that there are no communications in the world in that region that would not be something they could spy upon.
Now, what other countries may have reached secret deals to use diplomatic missions as centers for spying?
Well, it's clear that there are these Five Eyes, as I mentioned. So between New Zealand, there is a deal. Between the UK, we've heard about the GCHQ, which is the UK spy agency, them having deals. We've seen that Canada is working in cooperation with the NSA. That's where you had the outrage from Brazil President Dilma Rousseff, who was outraged that they were spying on the state oil company, Petrobras. And so between those countries, those are ones I think are particularly working for. And then behind the backs of European allies, I don't think that there are actual relationships, but behind the backs of allies like France or even Italy, you have people using embassies as listening stations.
Now, we got to go to a break, but when we come back, I want to talk about the possibility of Snowden actually going to Germany, or if he's going to have German diplomats meet him in Russia. I also want to talk about other world leaders who've been spied on by the United States National Security Agency. But like I said, we're on a break, so we'll be right back. We're talking to Kevin Gostolo of Firedog Lake right here on WHDT World News.